Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to be here. It's Paul Olenek with 4M Analytics, and today we're celebrating the release of instant utility data in the Pacific Northwest. So based on our clients' demands, we prioritize the states of Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, and Idaho to deploy what we're calling foundation data. We're also introducing brand new object detection technology, which is a real game changer. I'm excited to share with you here today. So for folks who are unfamiliar with 4M, here's the overview. We're on a mission to provide the first nationwide infrastructure map across the United States to enable faster, smarter, and safer planning and execution. So folks, our clients, they need utility information as early as possible when they're pursuing new projects or advising their clients on paths of least resistance. Before 4M, they relied on sourcing information from a bunch of websites, pulling together construction documents, and sometimes they might call 811 for a design ticket. We know what that looks like. Something like this. So you're going to reach out to your local 811 and you're going to submit a ticket. 2 or 3 days later, you're going to get a list of utility owners. Many of them are going to be incomplete, non-responded. So you're going to follow up with those utility owners as you can in tandem. You're going to check your mailbox, maybe a few weeks next month. You'll receive a big envelope of documents. So with that, you'll try and parse together a bunch of information that you're receiving, and then you're going to try and bring it all together, make sense of it all, and even digitize it if you have time. Now, if it's in scope to if you have time or budget scope, you might backfill those efforts with field investigation if you have time. But we know that this process takes weeks and months. So that's why we're here today to present the fastest way to reliable utility data. And that means you're going to be able to plan safer, smarter, and better. So when I'm talking to a lot of folks out there and I'm doing the elevator pitch, they're asking me or they're telling me, hey, this could probably work in, I don't know, Los Angeles or Seattle. But what about my area? So that's why for today, I'm going to give you a little example of somewhere maybe off the beaten path. Let's dive in. What we're looking at today is a living, breathing GIS database where our clients are simply accessing utility data on the fly. We're going to Garden City, Idaho for this one. So simply, all I'm going to do is type in our city name and begin requesting information. It's really as simple as this. You're going to upload a polygon or draw it yourself, and you're going to select a size that fits, and you're going to have immediate access to utility information as we're seeing here. So let's see the utility map. Instantly is going to populate a number of lines, utility owners, and utility analytics that you can begin and use on the fly. So here comes power, comms, sewer, gas, water. Each of these lines, as we zoom in, contains metadata as well. So where is the line from? Potentially utility owners, historicals, sizes, and many other details. Let's zoom out. This is 600 some odd acres. In those 600 acres, instantly we've located 16 potential utility owners, 9 in comms. So when I'm talking to folks and they talk about all the heartache and trying to understand who are the potential fiber and comms owners in their area, this represents probably a lot. It means a lot. Likewise with any of the private utilities, gas, power. And this represents the ability to filter down to those utility owners or understand those utility owners such as Zayo or Verizon are in your project area. On top of that, providing parcel information immediately so you can understand the zoning types and parcel information in your project area. to go along with right-of-ways, floodplain, and topography. Now, clients consistently tell us that this really helps them in the pursuit phase and cutting utility records collection by as much as 80% when you think about folks who are going into the various websites to collect this information and pull it all together. One client told us, in fact, that due to the fact that many firms can't go to this level of detail, they found that they were shortlisted on their project because they were able to identify a forced water main in the project area, which gave them a lot of credibility with their client that they did the extra homework that their competitors did not. Huge joint ventures are using this information as they pursue some of the biggest rail projects in the country. And it's also got an additional use case for permitting, where we think about rigorous utility documentation that is required. One client was having their analysts spend hours and hours of time digging through those websites. Now they simply use 4M and provide that for quick and easy permit approval. Love the questions that are coming in. Are there utility owners constantly updating the GIS records? I think it is helpful to give you a little understanding of where this data comes from. So when we think about all of our clients who we mentioned previously are going into a bunch of different websites, they're doing this ad hoc, right? We get a project, I'm going to go understand who the Garden City GIS database is that are available. What we're doing is we're doing this proactively. We're mapping entire states at a time, and we're finding that information from those various GIS databases that are out there. There's thousands in each state, and we're collecting them and putting them together in one place. That's step one. Step two is finding all of the various construction documents, blueprints, imagery, etc. We've taught our technology how to geotag that information and meld that together with the GIS information that we've been collecting to create a really strong starting point. Ritesh asks, is it 2D data or 3D as well? I mean, the depth of those pipes. So what you're seeing today is a 2D representation. We know the challenge with locating those depths that's found in those pothole records, right? And the purpose of this data is meant to be earlier on, planning, feasibility, and then you're going to use this data to best pinpoint your field investigation to find those additional attributes, Ritesh, similar to the depth of the individual lines. Another anonymous attendee asks, so it's open source and public data. A lot of it is. Yes, we're gonna talk through that some more. We've got in the chat, it is a lively bunch. I appreciate all the questions, and maybe one of these will be a good segment to the next stage. Extent of availability. We're going to cover that at the end. Good question. All right. So record lines immediately, and by the way, you can download this right now and take it into your shape KML format and move along. You can export this into your design or whatever platform that you prefer to move this into. Now, you've requested the project. All of our clients, when they request a project with us, it's going to go through an additional process. This is object detection. Excited to share this with you today. So let's see the coverage area. All of the green represents imagery, locations where we have imagery that we can use for object detection. Green denotes the full coverage. So that's where we can expect expansion of object detection. So what does that look like? After about 15 to 30 minutes, we've acquired the imagery, we've processed it, you've come back after lunch, you're going to come back to this project that has now been enriched, and it's going to look something like this. All these dots. So what do these dots represent? These dots represent the surface features located in the project area. You can imagine there's quite a few. You might have previously poked around Google Earth to find evidence of these features yourself. Now technology is pre-populating them for you, so you don't have to click through various iterations of imagery and try and piece it all together. In these 600 acres or so, we found 547 manholes. You see the number of poles, valves, pedestals, inlets, hydrants, etc. And each of those surface features also includes a catalog of their imagery as well as the timestamp of when they were collected so that you can simply click on the surface feature, which can help you validate the line that you're seeing. Click in. There's our hydrant hiding behind the bush, but we picked him up. And so now you've got a great deal of confidence in that water line we see running along the curb for you to have even more confidence in the location of that line. Lindsay asks, do the utility owners know that you are sharing their mapping and they have confirmed the accuracy? So one thing I can share with you is a lot of the utility owners are very intrigued to bring this on their own. We see it as a challenge in the industry that many utility owners do wish they had better control over their assets. So conversely to what you might expect where they might be protective, we're seeing a lot of utility owners really intrigued to bring this data on to better understand where their own assets are. Great. Thanks for that clarity, Ritesh. So where do we see this often used? Well, on let's take for example, we can come into let's go into our tools and workflows. Utility insights. From this, we can see a great write-up of the project area. What are our potential risks in the project area? Environmental risks, safety risks. So we know this information heading in. Can also determine what percentage of utilities are in the right-of-way. We know it's going to be easier to manage the utility coordination of those utilities inside of the right-of-way versus outside, which is where that parcel information is going to come in handy, where you see the various sectors and land ownership. Next, parcel information analysis, and then the utility crossing. Let's explore that. So in one use case, one client told us is in an undergrounding of power situation, I need to better understand where overhead power is intersecting with underground water. Well, we've now documented all of those potential utility conflicts so that you have those early on and you can understand, hey, what are my potential utility conflicts between water and power as I'm undergrounding that I need to solve? Next up, another strong use case is going out and optimizing field investigation. So you see all these service features here. Rather than, let's say you've got that new fancy GPR equipment or you're potholing, you can now have a working hypothesis of what's out in the field rather than going out blind. So this is going to cut a tremendous amount of time you might have spent trying to search for utility lines and surface features. You're going to have a great idea of where you need to go and investigate. All right. So next up, we can point to beyond the utility crossings, beyond the layers. Let's talk about one more additional use case. So one of our clients took this information at scale. They were working with a major utility in the Southeast, power undergrounding, and they were doing about 100 projects of EPC power undergrounding per year. In 2023, they did not have 4M. In 2024, they did. And so they were able to track the differences. What they found is in 24, they were able to save about 9 months of time from the previous year because they were shortcutting permits as well as getting a great start on digitization. So the reduction of time spent on tracking down utility coordination or tracking down utilities, the impacts of utility coordination, as well as getting a kickstart on the digitization side. And we found that about 80% faster permitting through this, nearly $1 million in labor savings. And as Kevin mentions, the speed itself nearly paid for 4M on its own purely. Today, once again, we're celebrating the pre-mapped states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Wyoming. Now, we've mapped 12 states in total with this pre-mapped information so that you can instantly pull data right away and get it enriched with object detection. You can see the dark gray represents some additional states which are near term on our roadmap. We'd love to put in the chat, by the way, if there is any states you would love to see mapped. I bet our team would love to hear from you, or prioritized rather. We're going to be doing this until we've mapped all 50 states. But what is the prioritization order? We'd love your feedback. So I am going to turn it over to you all for questions. Let's hear what you have. And I just saw a bunch more come up as I was speaking a little bit more. All right. Brett asks, what about providing the source data when available? We need to be able to be confident that the data is accurate and ensure that our clients are satisfied. So Brett, thanks for that question. It's an important one. Source information is something that is important, right? So something to denote that is critical on our side is that our information is coming from an array of sources, sometimes private, sometimes public, and sometimes we're creating that information. So it is almost, in some situations, is proprietary or there's sharing restrictions. So by and large, we do not out of the box provide every single reference as built that is available. What I can tell you is this, as we come back to the screen, I did this to call out that each individual utility line that we pick up comes with a utility ID. And when you're working with 4M Analytics, your client success manager will be working hand in hand with you. And if you have specific utility IDs that you need further information on, we're happy to provide information where it is available. Chuck asks, can we go to a very specific place? Chuck, you can schedule time with us and we'll be happy to do that with you. Does your system include property line information, thereby identifying if an SRW is required for proposed design? Anonymous attendee, I'm going to give you that to the extent of the parcel information. We see the outlines of the property lines. So you do have that. You'll have to give us a follow-up if that is sufficient enough information. Chuck asks, do you have a means of getting information back from the field to improve the accuracy of your data? Yes, this happens all the time with our clients. So sometimes our clients will just provide us with a Dropbox of files to use to add and enrich to the research that we're doing. This could include drone files. It could include anything. The technology we've developed to geotag and digitize and find records can also be used on your own proprietary records and add that to the data lake. On top of that, the next question you would ask is that information safe to myself? I don't want to share that. Yes, absolutely. That information would be partitioned to your own unique database and your own projects. It would not be shared with others. Anonymous attendee asks, do you have data for Canada? Yes, so instant data today is available in the 12 states we mentioned back here on this screen. Instant. Ad hoc data, project level data, available in all 50 states and Canada. You have to reach out to us. Those are special use cases. We'll need to validate those one by one. You can schedule time with us after, and we can talk about pinpointing on project locations as well. Is any of this data classified, especially on DoD installations? Lalit asks. Yes, so we will be working with you to identify good project areas and bad project areas. So if we're going to go mapping entire sensitive areas, that is not a use case where we will have a great level of data for you, and we will not recommend that you use those specific use cases. So keep that in mind, but we will be, none of the data that we provide is classified. You are able to export that and share it via the platform. but we will have some sensitivity around very specific project areas that you can reach out to us and talk about. But by and large, 99.9% of project areas are very okay to map. I believe I've hit the end of my queue. So I am open to more questions. If we've got anything else out there, this is your time. Russell Tate recommends Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Russell, nice to hear from you. Remember sitting next to you at a table out in South Carolina. Georgia is mapped. North Carolina is mapped. South Carolina is the last one. Look on your list. So I appreciate that. Will accessory data such as parcels, land ownership be available for exporting too? Could be good to supplement with utility data. Today, what exports is the line information and the points. That's today. Appreciate the request on parcel information. I believe we could provide that ad hoc in special situations. Again, you'll want to reach out to us and schedule some time to talk through those scenarios. Not impossible, but out of the box today, we're exporting lines and points for you out of the database. And then we do have the potential to turn this into a CAD as well, so we can draft it. And that is on a special use case as well. Again, reach out to us to talk more. So it's possible. All right, and let's see if we have any last questions. What percentage of utilities in each state do you think you capture? I'm assuming it's not 100%. Great one. So we go through the exercise of trying to understand from our perspective, what is our coverage? And we do this through a lot of really interesting ways. So you could think about real estate data, Zillow, understanding what is the types of utility connections. So are you water well companies versus others? And we can really understand what is our coverage area based on the types of sectors and lines that we're picking up. And through that, we can come up with a typical coverage. What is our coverage score in that area? And we do not release a state until we meet that minimum threshold of coverage. So Lindsay, to your question, 100%, nobody will ever be 100% until you reach into the ground and you touch the line. So you'll always ask that of whichever level of survey that you're intaking. But we do meet minimum thresholds, which we self-qualify, which our clients value and keep on using. I couldn't give you that exact number, but it is a very strong coverage that our clients see a lot of value in. Well, lead asked, you have also data regarding transformation stations, locations, and water treatment plants. Sometimes, again, I would recommend we chat on a follow-up call to discuss those particular types of project areas. And one last anonymous question. Would your data show elevation information, say inverts of certain utility? A lot of times we find that information from those public GIS databases. And something of note, you will be able to see those data sources that we do pick up. Currently, that information is not out of the box on the metadata, but we could point you into the right places to find that information on specific use cases. Appreciate all the good questions. We finally hit the end. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. Appreciate the accuracy of all your questions. And it was great to be here. You can, by the way, folks, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as Lisa has put a option to add time onto my calendar. And we look forward to chatting through any of your follow-up questions with you. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.